Questions before we move to the first presentation? All right, a little bit, thank you for setting the stage. I know you're not going to go anywhere, so we'll be able to engage as we go through this. We had two requests ahead of time that we always consider for longer presentations. One is CalAm, of course, that will come next, and the other was from Mr. Beach on behalf of two other ratepayer advocates who've been very active in the proceeding, and he'll have 20 minutes, and then generally, depends on how many cards I get. We'll try for 5 for everybody else who's here. I said okay to half the time Mr. Beach asked for because he's representing others and because they had a more different point of view, a different set of issues than the bulk of many of the other comments, and then other people can do their 5 minutes. So I figured it was better to be generous there. 20 some odd cards? 30, so it might be 3 minutes. All right. So Callan.
Yes, I'm Mr. McLean. So it might be.
So people can see over you? Yeah, go ahead. Whatever works.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, Chair Marcus and Board. My name is Rob McLean, and I'm the president of CalAm. And I'm going to cover this afternoon some of the things that the staff covered, so hopefully I can skip through those things quickly. But I also want to give you a view of all of this from our perspective. I want to talk about the projects that we're working on and give you a sense of what's happening on those projects. And then I want to give you some particular comments about the staff report that are of concern to us. So let's go to the next slide. If I can, I guess I can do that myself here. The red button?
No, one on this side.
Wait, okay.
It's this one I'm looking for.
Okay, I got it. Okay, so I'll come back to this, but there's two big comments that we have on the staff report. I'd first like to say thank you to the staff for working with us over the last couple of years to put all of this together. I think you got a flavor of how complicated all of this is in some of the dialogue that we just had. This is a very delicate balancing of carrots and sticks designed to achieve the outcome that we all want, which is us to be, at the end of the day, in compliance with the legal limits and to have a water supply for our customers for the future. So we will get into a little bit about the balancing that has been attempted here. And I think with maybe one exception that I'll talk about on the carryover credits, I think we have struck the right balance. So I'm very happy about that. And again, thank you to the staff, because we spent literally months and months in meetings that went on for probably almost 2 years. So I know these folks very well at this point, and they know us very well. Okay, as you heard in the staff report, I think a threshold issue is, are we in compliance with the existing order? And our belief is yes. In fact, we've got all these green check boxes. The only one we will not comply with is getting a new water supply by the end of 16, and that's of course what we're here for, seeking the extension. The staff showed you this in a table form, but we're showing it to you in a graphic form. This is, in the white color is the CDO limit, and the yellow color is how we did against that limit. And what you can see is that every year we killed it. We really did well against the limit. And I want you to be left with that it was not our intention to just come in and land within 1 acre-feet of the limit. Our focus has been to drive as much conservation as we could drive. And we're going to continue that if the order is extended. So we want you to be in that frame of mind when you think about your decision today. Okay, so here's a long list. I'm not going to go through every one of these things, but a lot of things have happened to get that performance that you saw on the prior slide. A lot of people, a lot of different agencies involved. You know, in Monterey, and this is highlighted in the staff report, 56.6 gallons per person per day. So that's much better than the statewide average. We're in the top bracket in the state board's conservation target. And you see there, we elected to continue that target of 8%. We worked with the Water Management District, and we are continuing that target. I know most of the water utilities in the state have gone to 0, but we are staying at 8% in Monterey. We spent a lot of money per customer on conservation, and that program has been very effective. I think when I look at the data over the period of the CDO, we've reduced by about 65% the amount of water used in our 5th tier. We have 5 tiers of rates, and if you get into that 5th tier, you're a high water user, and you pay a significant price for that extra water. But those customers have responded very well and reduced their use. Part of why we've done good compared to the limits. The forbearance agreement with the Rancho Cañada Golf Course was mentioned. That's a project that we worked with the Trust for Public Land on, and we're happy to be a part of that. We're closing down 36 holes of golf on Rancho Cañada. Also mentioned was the Malpaso project. And one that I'll mention, the last one I'll mention, because this is still yet to come. I think the benefits on this one are in the future. We were, I think, one of the first utilities in the state to try to deal with this problem we have with the tiered rates. When you have a leak with a tiered rate, you get a huge water bill. And you get upset with the utility because you say, well, gee, why did you wait 30 days to tell me that I had a leak? And now I have a $5,000 bill. But we also are challenged that we don't want to spend a lot of money on investments because customers have to pay for that too. So we said, well, gee, how can we get the best of both worlds? How can we get automated metering technology and have somebody else pay for it? And so we're working with our local electric utility, PG&E, and we're using their automated infrastructure that our customers in the peninsula have already paid for, and reading our meters that way. So we did a pilot. Following our pilot, the Public Utilities Commission actually opened this up and did a proceeding and have now opened this up to many utilities across the state of California. Cal-Am is doing another pilot with the gas company in Ventura. But because of the success of the pilot, we put this in our forward planning for capital, and we want to deploy this in the 2018 period. Of course, the commission has to opine on that and give us the authority to do it. But where we will end up is that you will, on your iPhone, be able to get an alert that looks like you had a leak last night and investigate. And so it's a big, big advance in technology. We've spent a lot of money on capital. One of the concerns over the years has been, have we invested enough in the infrastructure? And we have gone after quite a bit of investment, particularly in pipes. You can see there almost $40 million of investment through the CDO period. And a lot of that has helped reduce our non-revenue water. So it's been good for us. Let me go back here.
Sorry to interrupt, but do you have a number on non-revenue water right now? Just curious. You're probably one of our best.
Yeah, I will. I can show you that at the end of the presentation. I have a slide, but we've made massive strides in that area. In the area of water demand, we collaborate very closely with the Water Management District on the conservation programs, and I think it's fair to say that our programs are best in class. I want to highlight that this year, J.D. Powers did, for the first time ever, a water utility survey of public and private water utilities in the nation, and Cal-Am was listed in the top quartile in the West. And one of the reasons we think that occurred was because we have done a ton of messaging around conservation, and we have given very clear signals about that. On the habitat side, we're celebrating the removal of San Clemente Dam, and that is, as many of you know, the largest dam removal that's occurred in the state's history. We've recently commissioned about a $5 million downstream fish passage at Los Padres. I will show you a picture of that. And through the mitigation workings with NOAA Fisheries, we have funded to date about $11 million in mitigation activities that all of that money has gone onto the Carmel River. So here is the San Clemente Dam as it stood for many, many years. And here's where it used, here it is now. And this picture is not taken from the dam. This picture is taken from a drone that was flying above the crowd when we recently celebrated the opening of the river. This is the picture of the fish passage up at Los Padres. You can see the floating collector there that is now helping fish on the downstream, on their downstream trajectory. Go back. So just to talk a little bit about the projects that are going on. The staff talked about the water supply project. For us, that's everything. That's our solution. So that includes the aquifer storage and recovery and the pure water Monterey project. The desal is one component of that. It's one project of really three components to the overall solution. We filed that application in 2012. And we are still waiting on the environmental review to be completed. That's where there have been some delays that you are aware of. We also began operation of the subsurface intake, the slant well, in April of 2015. At this point, that well has seen about 250 days of service. It had to come off and go on for one or two different reasons, but at this point, we're pretty comfortable with its success. We reached 4 major settlements. Some of them had over a dozen parties to those settlements. And the 2 that we recently reached, there you see in 2016, we reached a settlement on how to deal with the brine discharge and the salinity monitoring. And we also reached a settlement that was predominantly with most of the growers in the Salinas Valley about how to deal with the return water obligation that comes with the small amount of groundwater that may be found in the intake to the desal plant. And as you may know, that return water obligation will go to the community of Castroville. And Castroville is a community that's struggling with saltwater intrusion, and they are also a disadvantaged community. So we are pretty happy about the outcome there, and a lot of different stakeholders are supporting that. We have construction contracts in place for all of the major components of the desal plant. While we have suffered through several delays at the Public Utilities Commission, we have not stood around waiting. We have continued to advance the design and continued to make forward progress on the construction contracts. So at this point, we are really waiting on the commission to finish their process and issue us, hopefully, the green light. There was some talk from the staff about the splitting of the process at the commission as a result of the delay. And so we expect as early as tomorrow, the commission may issue its proposed decision on the groundwater replenishment component of the project. As has been mentioned, in that's a concept where Cal-Am would buy up to 3,500 acre-feet of pure water from the Water Management District and the Pollution Control Agency. And we are also expecting in that same decision that may come out, proposed decision that may come out tomorrow, we're also expecting the authority to construct the pipeline that's needed to move that groundwater replenishment water to most of our customers. It has a secondary benefit that it also allows us to move extra aquifer storage and recovery water from the Carmel River into the Seaside Basin. That's up to about 1,000 acre-feet in normal to wet years. So when the staff was talking about where could we be in the next couple years, maybe shows it here. So the schedule on GWR is hopefully a release to go forward in the next month or so. And if that happens, the schedule will be that water will be available for our use, for our withdrawal from the Seaside Basin and service to our customers by the beginning of 2018. Similarly, if we get the approval to go ahead with the pipeline that is needed to move that water to our customers, we'll also get the extra benefit of the aquifer storage and recovery boost. All that would be in service by December 1st, which is when we have our season for ASR starting. On the desal project, the EIR is scheduled to be voted out, and this is kind of our rough schedule, along with what they call the CPCN, which is the Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, by November of 17. And that's a critical milestone on that project. Once that milestone is achieved, we can go forward with the downstream permitting and construction on the desal plant. Okay, and so what I wanted to show here is a pretty interesting slide of what's happening on the Monterey Peninsula. And what you can see is we are dramatically diversifying our water portfolio. We started back in the 90s, we had two sources. We had the Carmel River and we had the Seaside Basin. And both of those sources were used beyond their limits. And so the pie is not growing, really. The pie is diversifying. And what we're not showing in that pie, because they are not customers of Cal-Am, is the additional diversification through the Pebble Beach Reclamation Project and further to come through the Pacific Grove Reclamation Project. So, but you do see our efforts to diversify both the legal rights and the type of water that we have in the future. Okay, here we see a graphical representation of the proposed staff report. And what I'm trying to show you here is, well, how difficult is this all going to be as we move forward? And so what you see is on the bars, you've got, for example, if we look at 1617, you can see the blue bar is 8310. That's the effective diversion limit from the Carmel River that is in the staff report. And then we've stacked on top of that the amount of water that we can take under the adjudication of the Seaside Basin. In the case of 1617, that's 2251. And you can see over time, because of the Seaside Basin ramp down, there's changes. The last year is 1474. So we're dealing with the fact that it's not all about the Carmel River. There are also some changes happening on the Seaside Basin. And then you see three lines across the graph over time, which show what was our demand in 2010. That's way up there around 13,000. What was our demand in 2014 water year? That's the 10,793 number. That was a year where we had startings of the drought and pretty aggressive conservation. And then finally you see last year where we were under the historic drought emergency declaration from the governor and everything else at 9910. And so the orange line shows that, hey, for us to continue to be in compliance, we have to pretty much repeat the amazing performance that we've done over last year. We have to do that for a couple of consecutive years. And I'll show you here, this is a blow up of what is shown on that other slide. So for example, in water year 17-18, we would, if we had the exact same demand as we did last year, we would meet the target by 220 acre feet. But because of the Seaside Basin ramp down, in 2021, if everything stayed the same, we would miss the target by 126 acre feet. And that's why, for us, the one area in the staff report where I think the carrot is in the wrong place, and we've talked about this a lot with the Water Authority folks and the Water Management District folks, it seems to us that the hard cap of 8310 means that the carryover credits really can only be used by us in the event that we fail to achieve a milestone. And we don't have any intention of failing to achieve a milestone. We'd prefer to see the carryover to be used when we don't fail to meet milestones. We'd like it to be available to us to deal with the fact that what we have to achieve, as I was showing on the graph, is many years of excellent success. And there may be years where that may go up or down a little bit. Could be for anything, a big fire, a large main break, a convention in town. And so we'd rather see the carrot placed on the side of compliance as opposed to on the side of non-compliance. And the other thing is that the staff talked about the fact that they want to incentivize us to seek out and execute further forbearance agreements. And I think it's going to be hard for me to sell that to the stakeholders in the community if the only value of those forbearance agreements would be in the event that we miss a milestone. I'd prefer the forbearance agreements be executed to help us deal with the variability that goes from year to year. And if we miss a milestone, shame on us. And we have to deal with those consequences. So that's the one comment on the carryover credit that we'd like to leave with you, and I think Mayor Camp and Mr. Stolt will reinforce that. And then the last comment I want to raise about the staff report is that we added 2 milestones. And we're okay with those 2 new milestones being added, but what it does do, because of the reporting we put in place, it requires the first report to be due 120 days before the first milestone, which is August 1st of this year. So that's in 2 weeks. And one of the things in the report that we cannot do at this point is the fishery report. That's a concept that we worked out where we would engage the Science Center, the NOAA Science Center, to do an annual State of the Steelhead Fisheries report. And we haven't gotten them under contract yet. So we'd prefer to have the annual report waived in the first year and to start that next year if that would make sense for folks. And then finally, I want to raise one last issue. There was a fair bit of discussion with the staff here about what was the paragraph 3 in the draft staff report, or maybe condition 2 in the order, in the 2009 order. And what we see from all of the comments is that this is now, a lot of people are focused on this issue. There's a lot of concern about it. For Cal-Am, this is a pretty complicated part of the order. It's difficult for us to explain it to customers, and there's a lot of anxiety. I think you can see that from the comment letters. I don't have a solution for that, but what I would recommend is that my hope is you can vote out the order today, but that perhaps you could recommend that to the staff that they would work with us and the folks in the community to try to get a better outcome and understanding of condition 2. And in this, we're not talking about the moratorium on new service connections. I think there hasn't really been anybody that has commented on that. So people have accepted that there will continue to be a moratorium on new service connections, but the anxiety is around this concept of intensification of use in cases of changes in zoning or changes in use. And it's a little complicated to get into, so I will not get into it here. But I think it's fair to say there is some concern about that, and it's such a complicated issue that it's probably better, I think, to take it offline. And then lastly, I'd just like to acknowledge all the people that worked on this amended CDO. You can see them up here on the screen. Those are all the principal stakeholders that participated through all the litigation and hearings and settlements and internal discussions. And of course, there are other parties who have played a big role in this, but the folks up there on the screen are the major participants, and we thank them all for that, for their help. So I'd like to reserve a little bit of time if there's any questions that come back after all the other presentations. And okay.
So in the interest of and spirit of moving it along, unless people have specific questions for now, which is just fine.
One.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I'll just hold mine, and maybe someone else will ask it, or we'll ask it of someone else.
Oh,
So-
and I forgot to answer your question about non-revenue water. So there is the non-revenue water in acre feet over time.
Pretty impressive.
And-
What's the percent?
Eric, what are we, 6 or 7 now?
Wow. That is really good.
That's what Jerusalem gets.
Yeah. Ah.
We try not to talk in
They
percent
have,
because
they have,
there's a
they
lot
have
of ways
issues like
to-
vandalism, so.
Yeah, we're going to have to trot you out to your peers.
Thank you. Thank
Hopefully Max is listening. He is. All right, yeah.
you. Hello, Max.
Yeah, we're just going to get you in trouble.
I'd just like to get a better sense of scale here, looking at the the pie charts.
Okay.
So we've been focused so much on, the Carmel River in particular, but what about these other sources in terms of acre feet? And then the ones that you mentioned, sort of the other projects that are not on here, Pebble Beach and Pacific Grove, anything else?
Okay. Rich, if you want to come up and help me, but so this pie is to scale. And the GWR, as you've heard, is 3,500. So for Sand City is probably, Eric, did you use 94?
Yes.
Yeah. So that gives you a sense of the scale. Pebble Beach is, what, about 1,000, Dave? Where's Dave Stoll? It's about 1,000. And the Pacific Grove project, Mayor Camp, what is that about? 125.
Basin's 774.
Seaside Basin is 774. The desal is 6252. ASR is 1300. So that's about it, I think.
Okay, and anything else in the works?
No, not really, not that I'm aware of. We hear a lot of talk about projects that may pan out. I mentioned we may be able to do some more forbearance agreements. Those would be, tens of acre feet. So I think in terms of getting the carrots and sticks right, I think staff has hit it on the nail on the head that we need to now focus on delivering the GWR project, the ASR pipeline, and the desal component. And we really want to put our attention on those because without that, we don't solve the problem.
Okay, and then recalling the charts that staff had under different scenarios, I'm just curious on messaging to the community. What sort of information, in a very simplistic way, do you message to the community that if you don't meet those milestones, what does that mean in real terms as far as the community is concerned? Not just in terms of any financial penalties, but what that could mean to the homeowner. In terms of reduction, you're at that 8, you're intending on continuing to hit the 8% reduction, but what would it mean if you didn't meet those milestones?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of discussion about that, and of course, in the event of a failure to achieve a milestone, the district and Cal-Am, through our authority with the commission, we would have to do rationing. That would be one of the first steps, and we're in a proceeding right now at the Public Utilities Commission to revamp the rationing process, working collaboratively with the district. So one of the messages is we need to hit these milestones, otherwise we may suffer rationing. and nobody wants to do that. The other message, I think, and my sense is people are extremely aware of this problem on the peninsula. It's been going on for a long time. Everybody knows we need to build something to solve the problem, and they're ready for it to happen. That's my sense. So I think the messaging is that we have to deliver is just to make sure that we're communicating what's happening on the project and making sure that there's good stakeholder input, and that the agencies that need to act to allow us to move forward have the information they need and then can make those decisions.
Thanks. Can you go forward one slide? Thank you. So I understand the message of this, but when staff was briefing us on some of the data recent years, for instance, in 2013-14, which is the left bar on this graph, actually Cal-Am pumped 2871 from the Seaside Basin that year, according to some numbers I have here, which exceeds the 2669 light blue bar. So isn't it true that these limits on the groundwater basin have a little more flexibility maybe than the river diversion limit? And so this, the yellow line is not as a hard target, or I'm sorry, the blue bar is not necessarily as hard a target as it may have been portrayed.
Well, those numbers are right, and in all the adjudicated basins, you can overpump a little bit, and there are consequences to that. We're not setting out to dramatically overpump the Seaside Basin. We're the water master and the parties involved in that are very carefully monitoring. The impact of overpumping could be saltwater intrusion, and so the water master has set that ramp down schedule. Our objective is to meet it. We're trying to balance all of that together, but you're right that there is a little bit of more flexibility there, but I wouldn't say that, certainly without the judge's orders, we're not going to be able to, for example, in 2021, pump 26 or 2800. That's probably not a possibility.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm sure you will remember that in 2009, I voted against the CDO because I felt it wasn't, shall we say, demanding enough in terms of reducing the illegal diversion. So thank you for proving me right. Obviously, Cal-Am, step up to the plate, all your customers as well, and you've accomplished, much more than what was ordered in the CDO in 2009. And that, and the fact that, I've met with you and the mayors in the region and have toured the facilities and see how hard you guys are working on developing these alternatives, makes me more inclined to support extending the deadline this time around. However, I have to tell you that I'm a bit concerned about credits. I was already concerned about the staff's proposal, and now hearing your presentation about the cap, let me toss that out, and I welcome your feedback as well as other speakers today. Staff made a comment at the beginning of their presentation that an enforcement action is not meant to authorize an illegal diversion, but in essence, that's what we've done for a while, and staff is proposing, essentially an additional 5,000 acre feet in continued illegal diversion throughout 2021-22. So it's difficult for me to go even beyond that, especially when staff talks about how we need to incentivize, we have to provide incentives for Cal-Am and your customer to, be in compliance and no longer take illegal diversions. And what you're suggesting goes even beyond what staff has proposed, which I'm already uncomfortable with. So it just, I'm having trouble, I guess, with the principle that we are allowing you, the proposal is to allow continued illegal diversion, and yet what you're asking for is if you happen to illegally divert less than what we allowed, then you should be able to have credit for that and illegally divert more in other years. That's like I don't know, that's like someone, caught for embezzling from a bank and say, well, gee, I stole less money last year, so I should be able to steal more money from you next year. So I'm having real trouble with that. So help me understand.
Okay, certainly, and I remember you made a similar comment in 2009, and so thanks for working with us over these years.
I'm glad to know that I'm consistent.
Yes. But so first thing I will say is, and people often forget this, that these wells were legally drilled and permitted. Cal-Am can't do anything without governmental authority, and Cal-Am installed these wells. They were legally installed, and nobody knew at the time. Nobody knew in the 40s, 50s, 60s, even into the 70s, that the connection to the river. So we have a community that installed these wells. Cal-Am did that with the authority of the Public Utilities Commission and other governmental agencies, and over time it was realized these wells are impacting the river. And we changed from what was thought to be a groundwater to a surface water source, and that's why we're here. So we have to keep that in mind, that we had a changed circumstance that resulted in us being here. And then to your comment, I think here's how I look at it. We have a limited amount of resources on the peninsula working on solving these problems. And I think what we want is people focused on solving the problem. We do not want, I don't want my staff every day overly focused on whether we're going to be within 1 acre-foot or not of this limit, and overly fixating on that limit. So by giving us a little more flexibility on the limit, we can focus more on the solution. And that's how I look at the situation. We really do intend to beat the limit. We do not intend to be within 1 acre-foot. But as we draw down the limit, it obviously requires us to focus more and more on, are we achieving the limit? And so in all of the discussions we had, the concept of setting this bar at the 9910 number, if you're looking at the orange, that requires us to year in, year out for 5 or so years, achieve amazing performance. And I think we can do that. But should something come up, what we don't want to be is back here spending a ton of money with attorneys and all the community focused on did we exceed the limit by 20 acre-feet or something like that. We want a mechanism through this carryover to deal with the fact that there's you can't be average every year, or you can't beat the average every year, otherwise it wouldn't be the average. So that's what we're seeking in this carryover, and I totally understand your comment. It's just philosophically we're coming at it from a different perspective.
I guess we'll have to agree to disagree, because philosophically, for me, the limit is 3376, and so the flexibility is the additional 5,000 acre-feet that staff is already proposing.
Other questions before we go to comment? All right, I'm going to take the comments in the order that I got them. Mr. Beach, you'll be in here in the order you came in. You have a little more time, as I said. Yeah,